McLaren has been thrown into the eye of a storm that nobody in Woking saw coming. What began as a routine post-race inspection in Las Vegas has exploded into a full FIA investigation, fueled by new evidence that suggests the double disqualification of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri may not be an isolated technical slip, but part of a much deeper pattern. The FIA first started tracking after Brazil. Overnight, McLaren went from championship leaders to the team under the heaviest scrutiny on the grid, and the tension this has created behind the scenes is unlike anything the team has faced all season. Both Norris and Piastri were disqualified in Las Vegas due to plank wear violations. Norris's plank was found 0.07mm and 0.12mm below the limit at different measurement points. Piastri's measurements showed 0.04mm and 0.26mm under the legal threshold. These numbers represent clear, measurable breaches of technical regulations. When two cars from the same team show illegal wear in the same sections of the plank, the FIA knows it is dealing with a systemic behaviour, not random contact or debris damage. The initial team explanation pointed to unexpected bouncing and accidental floor damage, but the governing body wants confirmation whether the damage alone explains the numbers, or whether the team was unknowingly running with a setup that only became vulnerable after a loophole was closed. The championship standings make this investigation even more critical. Norris now leads Max Verstappen by just 24 points. Piastri sits level with the Dutchman. With only 2 races remaining in Qatar and Abu Dhabi, the perfect storm of timing for this investigation could not be worse. One more technical slip could turn a title fight into a catastrophe. The FIA's investigation has become unavoidable because the technical evidence from Las Vegas lines up almost too neatly with the suspicions that began in Brazil. The governing body had already uncovered a growing concern that several teams were using methods to protect their floor plank wear far beyond what the regulations intended. The plank, which must not drop below 9mm, is designed to stop teams from running their cars excessively low. The lower the car, the more downforce and stability it gains, especially in medium and high-speed corners. But what the FIA noticed in Brazil was that some teams appear to be running extremely low without suffering the corresponding wear you would expect on such a bumpy circuit. After the sprint in Brazil, Joe Bauer inspected a large number of cars and instructed several teams to remove the devices he found. That moment is essential to understanding why the FIA is now interested in McLaren. The trick, according to multiple technical sources, involves the heating of the titanium skid blocks embedded in the plank. These blocks are supposed to sit flush with the wood, but when they are heated, they expand by tiny but meaningful fractions of a millimeter. When that happens, they protrude slightly lower than the actual plank. In other words, the titanium makes contact with the asphalt before the wood does. Titanium can withstand the impact, wood cannot. And because the FIA measures the wood, not the metal, cars that use heated skids can run lower without the plank wearing. Once the car returns to the pits and cools down, titanium contracts again, returning to its legal measurement. On paper, the plank looks untouched, but on track, the car has run significantly lower than permitted, gaining free performance. The FIA didn't publicly expose any team in Brazil, but they did quietly intervene. If a team was previously benefiting from the expansion behavior of the heated titanium, removing it would instantly change how the car interacts with the track surface. It would bottom out more, it would porpoise more, and it would cause more wear on the plank, especially at a circuit like Las Vegas, where long straights, cold asphalt, and aggressive braking zones combined to punish any miscalculation in ride height. This is exactly the pattern the FIA is studying, the sudden spike in plank wear between Brazil and Vegas. McLaren insists its wear was due to unexpected bouncing and accidental floor damage, and those elements definitely contributed, but the governing body wants to confirm whether the damage alone explains the numbers, or whether the team was unknowingly running with a setup that only became vulnerable after the loophole was closed. The FIA's wording matters because they are not accusing McLaren of using the heated skid trick. They're examining whether the disappearance of the trick across the grid has unintentionally exposed weaknesses in real-time simulation modeling and ride height predictions. The investigation will break down the wear profile across multiple points of the plank. If the pattern shows repeated rhythmic grounding consistent with porpoising, McLaren's explanation will hold, but if the wear appears earlier in the race or on sections of the track where the team didn't predict bottoming, that will point towards a deeper modeling failure. The FIA will analyze McLaren's telemetry and floor load data from the start of the race to the moment the wear became severe. The timing is significant. Norris began experiencing a sudden loss of pace around lap 45. Telemetry shows he started lifting on the straights long before the braking zones, a behavior that indicates heavy fuel management. Fuel saving is not illegal, but the FIA will still note that McLaren was running with extremely tight margins. A team balancing fuel, tires, ride height, and aero efficiency at the limit is more vulnerable to breaches when track conditions differ from simulation models. It doesn't prove wrongdoing. It proves risk exposure. And risk exposure is exactly what the FIA is trying to understand. The fact that Jos Verstappen suggested Max already knew the McLarens would be disqualified adds even more weight. Whether he meant it literally or simply observed their behavior on track, it fuels the narrative that rival teams suspected something was wrong. If Red Bull, Mercedes, or Ferrari detected unusually heavy grounding or noticed spark patterns inconsistent with a legal ride height, they likely informed the FIA informally. The governing body uses these whispers as guidance to initiate deeper analysis. This is how investigations begin, not with accusations, but with observations. The most sensitive question is whether McLaren had any advantage earlier in the season from the now forbidden skid block behavior. Even if they did so unintentionally or unknowingly, the FIA will want clarity. If the team benefited from running lower thanks to heating effects, even without malicious intent, its sudden struggle with plank wear once the loophole was removed becomes a key data point. This doesn't mean McLaren cheated. The FIA themselves have said there was no intent, but it does mean McLaren's Vegas disaster may be the direct result of losing a protection they didn't realize they relied on. And that creates a technical vulnerability at the worst possible time. The investigation doesn't just look backwards, it looks forward too. If McLaren was running so close to the limit in Las Vegas that a combination of porpoising and small damage caused the plank to fail, the FIA will want assurances this cannot happen again. They will expect modeling corrections, reinforced failure predictions, and more conservative ride height strategies for Qatar and Abu Dhabi. These will be monitored closely. The FIA may even increase random checks on McLaren's floor assembly and skid blocks throughout the weekend. When a team goes under the microscope like this, every bolt, every measurement, every legality hole becomes a subject of scrutiny. The impact on McLaren's championship fight cannot be overstated. The pressure in the garage will be intense. Engineers will be forced to decide whether to sacrifice ultimate pace for safety margins. Strategy personnel will have to consider whether aggressive tire usage risks altering the car's ride height mid-race. It's the kind of tension that reshapes the mindset of a title contender. Every parameter they choose in Qatar, every ride height change, every fuel calculation, every stiffness adjustment will be viewed through the lens of the Vegas investigation. The team must now operate with a level of transparency and precision that leaves no room for ambiguity. They must present clear evidence, consistent data, and reliable modeling that proves there is no deeper issue. Qatar isn't just another race, it's their first test under investigation, their chance to reset the narrative, and possibly the moment this championship is won or lost. The team arrives in Lusail knowing that every millimeter, every simulation, and every legality check will be studied with forensic intensity.